Hello and welcome. Most athletes revel in their moment of glory when they win an Olympic medal. But this young star realized he had just one small window of opportunity to make a difference for others. This week on One on One, meet the American Olympic champion speed skater and activist for Africa, Joey Cheek. It might have been hard for this talented athlete from Greensboro, North Carolina in the southern United States to imagine that he would not only become one of the fastest men on ice, but also an effective campaigner and activist for human rights. Joey Cheek, who first started skating at the age of 10, won an Olympic bronze medal by 2002 and went on to shine in the 2006 Winter Olympic Games with a gold in the 500 meters and a silver in the 1,000 meters. Cheek was inspired by the activism of fellow speed skating Olympian Johan Olav Koss of Norway, who had set up Right to Play and donated his prize money from the medals to the Humanitarian organization, encouraging other athletes to make similar pledges and raising $1 million. Horrified by the genocidal scale of killings in the Darfur region of Sudan, Cheek joined rallies and formed Team Darfur to highlight the desperate plight of the people there, using his fame to lobby the US Congress. His activism led to China revoking his visa to the 2008 Beijing Olympics, but that hasn't stopped this young athlete for standing up for the rights of others far less privileged than himself. Joey, great to talk with you.
Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. Now, you once said, I skate around ice in tights. It's no big deal. But you won gold medals and everything else. Did you ever expect to get to that level?
I like to talk, when I talk about Olympians, I like to say that we are able to deceive ourselves for decades at a time. And I'm glad no one told me how hard it would be to eventually win gold medals, because I never would have been able to do it. But I think even from the time I was a little kid, I was skating because I wanted to go to Olympics and win gold medals. So I think at some level I thought I could.
Now, what is it that makes you so fast? Is it genetic? I mean, from what you gather, is it genetic? Is it the training? Is it a combination of the two, or even something like just diligence and dedication?
Everyone is born with some base level of talent. I think I was always talented. Even when I was 9 or 10 years old, when I first put skates on, I was better than most kids around me. But by the time you get to the Olympics, everyone is talented. And that's where your preparation and your years of effort and your mindset and the system that you build to train yourself, that determines, I think, the difference between first and third and fifth and 10th.
It's interesting. I read an article how you said that everyone trains like crazy for this golden moment, so to speak, but really only a couple come out at the top like that with the medals, and that's quite an adjustment mentally.
Yeah, it is, and actually that is the great beauty of the Olympics, right? Is because I won a gold medal, everyone assumes maybe I was destined to win a gold medal. But the day before I won the medal, there was 35 guys. Every one of us were only a few hundredths of a second away from being that guy who won the gold. And of course, the day after, then you always have it. And so there's that one day. And if you hit it on that one day, then you're remembered for the rest of your life as an athletic champion.
It's interesting because you're certainly one of the younger interviewees I've had on this show. And I say that with all respect, but essentially we profile people's lives, their personal lives and their public lives. Now you've still got a long way to go, and yet you've achieved so much in this time. Have you set yourself long-term goals? Because you've reached the sort of Olympic athlete stage at 22.
The way I look at it is this: I have, of course, great ambitions, and I have these great personal accomplishments that I want to hit as I reach certain milestones. At 25. I was going into my 2006 Olympics, in which I ended up winning gold and silver. But I was looking at my skating career, which I'd had for 10 years, and I said, I don't know that if I did this for another 4 years, if I went till I was 30, I don't know that I would gain anything more than I've already gained. And so I wanted to try and go and find new ways to excel and new ways to challenge myself. So I intend to continue to do that. And I hope, Riz, more than anything, to justify you actually putting me on at 20.
No, it's already there. But yeah, it's interesting because, you've taken on a lot even since then. I gather really for you, the skating is over, is it, as a true sort of Olympic athlete?
Correct. As a full-time athlete, my career is finished. And I really accomplished everything that I ever dreamt of. When I was a kid, I wanted to become the world champion in speed skating, which I did, and then I became the Olympic champion as well. And there's nothing after that for me. And so I had to go on to the next step.
When we first spoke, it was about a project that you have a lot of passion for. You took on, you became the co-founder and president of this, and that's Team Darfur. Tell me about that.
What I noticed, in the year after the Olympics, I was able to raise a great amount of money for refugees from Darfur. I was able to talk about this issue, and in the United States, raise it from a low level of attention to a much bigger level. But what is the case, and I think it's the case for anyone who achieves any type of celebrity. So you have a very brief window in which you're effective. And I only had a few real months when I was in the media public spotlight in the U.S. and really had the attention of powerful people. And so, I hatched with some other bright friends of mine this idea: what if we could engage other athletes, and not just U.S. athletes, but athletes from around the world, particularly for Darfur. I mean, it's been going on for 5 or almost 6 years now, and the crisis really hadn't been alleviated yet. So we started looking to other athletes, Olympic athletes primarily. And today, after a year after starting Team Darfur, we have 380 plus athletes from 63 nations around the world. And so I found a new way to be more effective in this call for peace for these people.
You're also an ambassador for Right to Play, which was set up by Johan Olaf Koss, another speed skater who was on the show as well. And you basically get involved with that as well. Now, tell me how you are able to devote time to all that, because you're doing so much.
Well, my role with Right to Play, especially in the beginning, I was much more involved. I was able to raise quite a bit of money. I think we raised more than $1 million in just a few months. Most of it was to Right to Play, a few other charities as well.
This came from you saying, I'm going to devote my money from my gold medals to...
Right. Going into those 6 games, I was looking for a group that I could donate money to, and we could get a message out. Again, that spotlight is bright, but it's very brief. And so Right to Play was ultimately the group that I chose to donate to. They had a program in Chad for refugees from Darfur, and that's what I donated. We have a medal bonus for winning medals in the U.S., and I donated my money to that. That was where it really all started.
Tell me about your early life, your earliest childhood memories. North Carolina was home.
Yeah, I grew up in North Carolina. When I was about 9 or 10 years old, there was a kid just down the street who was an inline racer. And in the early 90s, everybody, inlines like rollerblades, everybody was racing and skating on inline skates. And I put them on at 10 years old, I think. And I don't know, it's rare that you feel like God actually made you to do something. But when I put skates on, that's how I felt.
It was a neighbor, I think, that encouraged you to start, wasn't it?
It was. Was it? Just down the street, yeah. He was on a speed skating team, and he brought me to a practice. And he and I convinced my mom that for $2 once a week, I could go to the skate practice and could skate the session, the public session afterwards. And so we'd get out of her hair for a couple hours every week. And she thought it was a great idea and didn't realize within a few months I'd be doing this full time and traveling all over the country, and she'd be having to shell out the money for the furniture in the house.
And I know your parents, you weren't a wealthy family. You were actually just making do, and yet your parents were so involved with charity work. They're always doing very charitable stuff. Tell me about them.
My mom especially. From the time from as early as I can remember, my mom has always done work with her church groups and volunteering, particularly with troubled teens and teens who had some pretty nasty situations at home and acted as a sort of a protector in court cases for some of these kids.
Child abuse victims, basically. Yeah.
Exactly. And so she was always very passionate about teenagers. And it was funny because I remember when I was a teenager, 12, 13, I would oftentimes have friends that would come over and talk to my mom and ask my mom for advice on problems. And I always thought, strange, I'd have some of these older friends of mine that would come to my house and talk to my mom. So both my mom and my dad really pushed the idea that you're a very small part of this world, but you can still contribute a large thing.
So do you think that's where you got such a drive and passion for this from your parents?
Yeah, I have to imagine. My mom especially, I think, just seeing her. I mean, I don't know if it was ever overtly said to us, do good to other people, but I think the example that both of my parents set showed me that it's a worthwhile way to live.
You described yourself as a geek at school.
I was.
How did that affect you? How did that affect your level of confidence?
It's funny. I quickly accelerated through the ranks of speed skating, and on inlines, as in most things, when you're successful in one area, of course, people around you think, they treat you one way. And I go back to school, and speed skating is still a very unusual sport in the U.S. And so for me, going back to school and still being this very bookish, kind of quiet kid at school, it was like I was living parallel lives. One life in which I was sort of a hero and well-known and very good at what I did, and one life in which I was sort of ridiculed a bit for carrying around a huge backpack and always having my nose in a book.
Did it put a lot of mental pressure on you to be competing at that level internationally?
I don't think so. I wasn't, when I was a younger skater, I think I was very eager to break everyone else's minds around me. Like my competition, I always wanted to break them. And so I didn't realize until I was older, like what pressure was. But when I was 14, 15, 16, all I wanted to do was win. But traveling to these areas that I'd only read about and read quite a bit in history, and then seeing some of these countries, even at 16, I think it starts to change your worldview.
And how supportive were your parents? I mean, were they really encouraging you? Did they see a future in it?
Yeah, just enormously supportive. We had quite a few teachers. Again, growing up in a small southern town in North Carolina, and to say I'm going to, my son is leaving school at 17 years old to go try and be a speed skater full time. He won't be back for 7 or 8 months. And my teachers are just, this is lunacy. He's going to ruin his life. And that was long before I made an Olympic team. But they said if you have a dream and you have something you believe in, something you want to accomplish, you got to go for it. And they made sure I had whatever I needed. We didn't have much, but they made sure I always had the right equipment and at least some roof over my head, if nothing else.
What was the turning point for you? At what point did you realize you could win medals? I mean, serious medals.
There were so many stages where you're sort of, you wonder if it'll ever happen, and then you're sort of reaffirmed, and so you keep progressing. About a year before the 2002 Olympics, I was maybe 20 years old. And going into those Olympics, I ended up winning 3 of the 5 distances at Olympic trials. And that was the first time I was very close to world records. And in that same or the season just before, I was racing another world champion, a guy named Jan Bos from Holland. And we were racing in this 1,000 meters, the race that I would end up winning my first Olympic medal in. After 600 meters, we were dead tied. And I ended up losing that race, but I realized for the first time, I might actually have something to compete with these heroes that I've looked up to my whole life.
Joey, many more questions for you. Don't go away. We'll be right back with some more one-on-one questions for Joey Cheek in a moment.